Hey guys, in this video I'll be walking through the ethical theory of act utilitarianism. My goal is to explain its framework step by step using the concepts from our textbook and then briefly apply it to a moral dilemma from a dystopian world. I'll finish with a reflection on what strengths and weaknesses appear when we try to use this theory in extreme circumstances. Now, utilitarianism is an ethical theory that evaluates the morality of actions based on their outcomes, specifically whether they increase happiness and reduce suffering. This is known as the principle of utility, often summarized as the greatest good for the greatest number. Now, the greatest happiness principle is central to this approach. Actions are morally right if they maximize overall happiness for all affected individuals, not just the person making the choice. Now, Jeremy Bentham developed an idea where he would emphasize that pleasure and pain are the two sovereign masters of human life. And utilitarianism is also a form of consequentialism, which means it judges actions not by their intrinsic qualities, but by their results. Now, in practice, this gives us a flexible and outcome-oriented way of approaching moral dilemmas. Now, act utilitarianism is a specific branch of this family of theories. The key word is act. Act utilitarians focus on particular actions in specific situations. An action is judged right or wrong based on whether, in that moment, it maximizes overall happiness. The same action might be judged differently in another context. To guide these decisions, Bentham created the hedonic calculus, a systemic way to measure the moral worth of an action by weighing its pleasures and pains. The calculus uses 7 criteria. 1 is intensity, how strong that pleasure or pain will be. 2, duration, how long it lasts, whether it is a very brief in that one moment or if it carries on. 3, certainty, how likely is it to occur? Like, what are the odds? 4, propinquity, which is like how soon it will occur, whether or not you'll have to wait for it. 5, fecundity, whether it will lead to more of the same sensation. 6, purity, whether it is free from producing the opposite sensation. And 7, the extent, how many people will be affected. To apply the calculus, you compare possible actions by weighing these criteria. For example, our textbook explains how donating to charity may generate moderate but long-lasting widespread happiness with little risk of pain, while buying a personal luxury may bring intense but short-lived pleasure with limited extent. The calculus pushes us toward the option that creates the greatest net happiness. Now, to apply this to a dystopian world, I chose to write about the Hunger Games in my script, and whether it'll be Katniss deciding whether or not she needs to form an alliance with another tribute, right? Specifically Rue. Now, using the hedonic calculus, I weighed the intensity and duration, right? The safety and companionship might bring strong, sustained relief, right? And then certainty, there's a high chance of immediate benefits like shared resources, or when, Rue saved her life by hiding her in leaves. Propinquity, the payoff is almost immediate. I mean, Rue did save her life. You feel safer right away. Fecundity, the safety could lead to further benefits like better rest and energy, or even strategy, right, when they took out the career's food. And then purity, the risk of betrayal later lowers the purity, right? There's always that risk. And the extent, both you and your ally are directly affected. An act utilitarian would tally these results. If forming an alliance creates more net happiness and survival benefit, even with the risk of eventual betrayal, then the moral choice would be to ally yourself with Rue. Now, act utilitarianism has important strengths. It promotes the greater good, offers a clear and practical framework for decision making, and is flexible enough to adapt to different situations. but it also faces serious critiques. It can be impractical to calculate all outcomes. It sometimes overlooks justice or individual rights, and happiness is subjective, and the theory can be demanding by requiring constant moral calculations. Even so, our textbook reminds us that Bentham hoped utilitarian reasoning would be especially valuable for policymakers writing laws to promote collective well-being. This shows how the theory can guide both personal choices and public policy. Now, in dystopian worlds like the Hunger Games, act utilitarianism clarifies decisions by forcing us to weigh consequences systematically. At the same time, it exposes the limits of calculation when outcomes are uncertain or when happiness conflicts with justice. Understanding both its power and its limits helps us see why utilitarianism remains such an influential ethical framework today. All right, now that's my overview of act utilitarianism. I gave its blueprint. I applied it to a moral dilemma, more specifically in a dystopian world. And I also talked about its strengths and weaknesses.